Ward. The order of participation will be Ms. Afzal, Mr. Zaruba, Mr. Eckhoff, and Ms. Ozog.
Ozog.
Ozog, thank you. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements. Ms. Afzal?
Hello everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the League for hosting this forum today. I believe this kind of public discourse is vital to create the kind of politics and transparency you want to see in our local government. I also, it's nice to be back in Glenbard South, where I graduated just over a year ago. It's actually in this very library that I started my first foray into local politics. There's a table over there that I filled out my first election judge form and served as a poll worker in the 2016 primary and general elections. I worked from 5 a.m. to 11:30 at night, setting up the booths, counting the ballots, and then ultimately finding myself very interested in the workings of local politics. I have been working since then with the county party, knocking on doors, walking across DuPage, talking to residents of all ages, all political backgrounds, to ask them what they find important and what they want solved at county level. I then started attending board meetings myself, saw the lack of representation on the board, and decided that DuPage residents deserve better. I am running now to bring a new voice to DuPage and to the county board. I believe that we need new perspectives, especially with a changing political landscape. I think it's more important than ever to have new voices that are able to shed light on issues that haven't been as heard before. So this is why I'm here. I'm looking forward to answering more questions about my policy because I'm running on a purely issue-based platform that I think the residents deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Zaruba.
Thank you and good afternoon. 35 years ago, when my parents got married, they decided to make the decision to stay in DuPage County and raise a family. They lived in Wheaton, Glendale Heights, and then Wheaton again. They decided to specifically live in District 4 due to the good schools, safe streets, and because the county provides good quality services at a reasonable rate. Now fast forward 35 years. Both my wife Mandy and I live in Wheaton. We want to have the same opportunities my parents had to raise a family here in District 4. And that's why I'm running to be your next county board representative. Both Mandy and I live in Wheaton, where we both work. After graduating law school, I sought after and obtained a job at the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted violent offenders, domestic abusers, and parents that abuse and neglect their children. Now in private practice, I get appointed by judges here in DuPage County to represent, again, the best interests of minor children who are involved in contentious litigation. I've always grown up in a family that has cherished and prioritized public service, from my grandparents that are involved in the military, to my mom and my sister who are involved in education, as well as my father and my brother who were highly involved in law enforcement. My brother actually just received a life-saving award from the governor in Louisiana earlier this week. Public service has always been part of my family. As your next county board representative, I look forward to representing, again, the community in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eckhoff?
During the time that I've been privileged to be an elected official, I've always tried to focus on delivering essential governmental services at the lowest possible tax rate. I did that on the Wheaton City Council, I've done that on the county board. When you look at delivering those services at the lowest possible tax rate, you have to look at both revenue and expenditures. When I was on the city council in Wheaton, when I first got elected, you could shoot a cannon down Main Street at high noon and not hit anything. I was elected, I changed some of the laws that we had in the city, and now we've got a vibrant downtown that brings in tax revenue. And the whole purpose of bringing in that sales tax revenue is to keep your property taxes as low as possible. On the county board, I focused in on services. I looked at consolidation of number of governmental units. I focused primarily on fire protection districts. We've also had consolidation of the youth home with Kane County. We've had the consolidation of PSAP, public service access points, so when you call 911, someone answers the phone. And by doing that, we've saved millions of dollars for the taxpayer, both with the youth home and with the PSAPs. So that's sort of my philosophy about government. But when you get to be an elected official, you also run into issues that you didn't see coming. And one of them was heroin. And I'm the co-chairman of the Hope Task Force, which deals with heroin. Our sheriff is a part of that, Bob Berlin, chief judge, a number of people in DuPage County. And we've tried to focus in on reacting to this problem. We've done a good job that I think is leading the nation in dealing with the issue. So my literature is out front. You can see my profile. I'm a resident of Wheaton and a practicing attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ozog?
Hi, I'm Mary FitzGerald Ozog, and I've lived in DuPage County for 32 years. I'm running for the DuPage County Board because I believe that the people who pay for government deserve good government. And I believe good government can and does exist because I've been an active part of it for the past 8 years. I am the current Vice President of the Glenbard Township High School District 87 Board. I was first elected to the board in 2011 and re-elected in 2015. The Glenbard District is the third largest high school district in Illinois with an annual operating budget of $160 million, serving 8,000 students in 4 high schools. In spite of the Great Recession and the nightmarish state budget issues, the Glenbard Board has delivered a balanced budget to the taxpayers of District 87 for the past 9 years. While on the Glenbard Board, I have been part of the negotiating team for our primary labor contract. Right after I was elected in 2011, the board embarked on an executive search for a new superintendent. That superintendent is starting his 7th year of service, again guaranteeing continuing stability for the district. I chaired the district finance committee from 2015 to 2017, during which time we built a $12 million science wing addition to Glenbard West and continued our on-time and on-budget 10-year, $100 million capital improvement program at all 4 of the Glenbard high schools, and you can witness some of our work right here today. I've advocated for policy changes to help students by working with administration and fellow board members. And I always remember that we board members take an oath to represent our taxpayers first. My Glenbard board experience has certainly given me the experience necessary to serve on the DuPage County Board. Board members have to assess policies and reach across differing viewpoints and constituencies to serve our residents. My experience as a Glenbard board member has certainly trained me to do that. But I also have another experience not shared by my fellow candidates. I am a mom of 4. There's not really a job description for mother, but I can tell you that all of my organizational, diplomatic, and advocacy skills have been tested and honed while raising 4 kids to adulthood.
Thank you, Ms. Ozog.
Thank you to the League for hosting us today.
We'll now begin the question portion, and we will go in staggering rotation. So Mr. Zaruba will be answering the first question. And that first question is, what will you do to support a vibrant economy in DuPage County?
It's a really great question. One of the things that I plan, if I am duly elected as your county board representative, to help the economic status here in District 4 is to change the bidding process that our county currently utilizes. Right now, the county has a process where we seek out for a number of different offices and departments in the county through national bidders. Whether it's cars or different equipment, we go through national bidders. And the purpose for that is that if you look nationally and look through all the businesses across the country, that we're going to get the lowest price. The problem with national bidders is that sometimes the local bidder or local businesses here that can't necessarily provide something in Tennessee or Alaska aren't part of this bidding process. So I'd like to open that up to the businesses here in DuPage County to allow them to bid on this process, help their business, while also helping the sales tax revenue here. Thank you.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Well, the first thing you need to understand about DuPage County is throughout the state of Illinois, DuPage County's always got the lowest unemployment rate. We've got the highest occupancy rate of offices and office buildings. So we have a good economic footing to begin with. The biggest thing that we've done in the last few years is start what's called Choose DuPage, which is sort of like a chamber of commerce for the county. And the purpose of Choose DuPage is to bring in businesses so that they have a seat at the table with government, They can talk to us about what their concerns are, and we can listen to them. But we realize that the best ambassador for a county and for business is the business people in it, because they go all over the world. They talk about DuPage County and how it's a great place to live and raise your family. And so the reason that I will continue to support Choose DuPage is because it attracts businesses, it keeps businesses here, and then it helps expand those businesses.
Thank you. Ms. Ozog?
There are a number of things that you can do to encourage economic development. One of the most important things recently is DuPage County government is encouraging Innovation DuPage, which has started over at the Glenbard Civic Center and is where the police department used to be located. So they're working on incubators and working on developing new ideas and new businesses right here in DuPage County. I'd also like to encourage what urban planners call adaptive reuse of retail areas. For instance, the Macy's store is scheduled to be torn down at Stratford Square, and I believe the company is called Woodman's is going to come in and redevelop, and that was approved this past week. Redeveloping those types of uses are very important. And most importantly, I think we really need to be concerned about transportation in the county. The Metro budget was approved this week. It didn't raise fares, but they're really very concerned about their budget, and we need to be concerned about Metro and what it does for our local economy, and also pace and our road situation and how we spend our DuPage funds.
Ms. Afzal?
So I believe that the economy and the budget is the most important issue facing DuPage County over the next 5, not 10 years. I believe that we need to encourage local vendors to be the first clients for any contract granted by the county. I think we need to eliminate the use of the practice of no-bid contracts granted to vendors in order to ensure that we're paying the lowest price possible for the best service that we receive. I also believe that public transportation is a big issue and component when discussing economic prosperity in DuPage. As a student in Chicago, a commuter student, I worked with a local neighborhood organization that had to sacrifice 8 family housing permit units in order to secure parking spots because those residents were workers in DuPage and needed a car to travel out to the suburbs. I think that by improving our public transportation in the area, we can bring in new consumers and new workers, as well as students. People are moving out of DuPage, we need to bring them back in.
Thank you. We will begin the next question with Mr. Eckhoff. Given the fiscal challenges the county faces, in part due to state funding cuts, what programs and services would you protect from cuts, and where do you feel cuts might be made?
Well, the biggest job for the county is public safety. So we have to maintain strong public safety. That's the sheriff's office, that's the court system, although the judges are paid by the state, and maintain that relationship with other municipalities. So we work all the time to do that. I'm the chairman of the Judicial Public Safety Committee. So many of those groups report to my committee. And we've worked with them over the years to reduce costs as much as possible through technology. And that's why we've had a flat property tax levy for the last 10 years. The one area that I have looked at or talked about sometimes examining is the allocation that we give to certain not-for-profits. I think if we had to cut something, that's probably the first place I'd start.
Thank you. Ms. Ozog?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. Given the fiscal challenges the county faces, in part due to state funding cuts, what programs and services would you protect from cuts, and where do you feel cuts might be made?
Well, I think one of the first areas you would want to protect is public health. Besides public safety, especially when you look at the opioid crisis, that's certainly something that's very important. I think in terms of how the county uses the money that it has, in the past couple of years, they gave themselves a salary raise 2 years ago. They went from $50,000 a year for this job to $52,000 a year. They just approved a budget close to $300,000 for lobbying. On District 87, we do our own lobbying. We met in the past few weeks with our state senator and our state representative. These are certainly the kind of cuts by a thousand cut. These kind of minor cuts or minor spending are the kind of things where we could certainly put money toward other programs. We don't need to put that kind of money toward the board members themselves.
Ms. Afzal.
Right now, 18 county board members are being paid $52,000 a year to meet once a week. The county board also recently voted to grant $260,000 to 3 outside lobbyist firms in Springfield to do the job for them. I think these are the immediate cuts and freezes that need to be made on expenditures in order to focus on better spending and investment into community and constituent services that DuPage residents actually deserve. I also believe that public health and making sure we continue to combat the opioid and heroin epidemic in the area is imperative. We need to make sure that we need to make sure that we secure consistent public-private funding partnership funding in order to continue to support the efforts of the HOPE Task Force, because while it's a good step in the right direction, it's not enough. We need to make sure that we ensure consistent funding to maintain and sustain their good efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Zaruba.
Thank you. I do agree that public safety should be prioritized. I would go a little bit step further. I think when we're talking public safety, you're not just talking about the sheriff's office and the police officers that are patrolling your neighborhood. We're also talking about the state attorney's office, public defender's office, probation, the circuit clerk of the court's office that actually has to maintain all the cases that continue to go through the courthouse. So these are things, as well as the health department, that need to be prioritized, and I think they have been prioritized by the county. When you start looking at cuts, I agree with some of my opponents. The pay for some of the elected officials may be too high. The amount of money we're allocating for lobbyists may be too high. What we're really talking about is just a drop in the bucket. It may sound great when you're going door to door or you're doing a candidate forum like today, but you really need to start thinking about a bigger picture, because the state is cutting a large number of our expenses. So you do have to look at the duplicative services and look at the non-constitutional offices that do exist in our county government to possibly consolidate.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Ms. Ozog. What is your position on funding and building the East Branch DuPage River Trail, and how can we ensure more of our tax dollars go to trails in District 4?
Well, right before I came here, I had a nice bike ride with my son, who's in the audience, on the Illinois Prairie Path, which I've lived next to for the last 32 years. And I'm very much in favor of evaluating the North-South Trail or the East Branch Trail, excuse me. I think one of the main things, first thing that needs to be done is, and I've been speaking with some of the citizen advocates about this, we need to retool the engineering study that was done in the early aughts, I think 2004. There's very likely federal money available, hopefully, if our transportation budget hasn't been completely decimated. But I think that would be a really good amenity for the community, and it's an achievable goal. We're not talking about $100 million here. This is something that we could definitely achieve for the community and would be used, as I can attest to from the Illinois Prairie Path, by many, many DuPage residents and also people coming through DuPage. Thank you.
Ms. Afzal?
While speaking to residents who, like Mary, regularly use the Prairie Trail Path, I believe that this idea is actually pretty great. I think that we need to increase the use of trails in DuPage County as both an environmentalist and as someone who believes in the power, believes in the importance of protecting and investing in our environmental services. I think this path is a great idea. Residents have supported this idea as well, and I think that as a county board member, you should be there to reflect the needs and wants of your constituents. If they're in favor of this path and the numbers work out in favor, then I believe that this is something the county board should move forward and support.
Thank you. Mr. Zaruba?
Thank you. It is a good idea, and I do support it. The county board only has a limited role. There's the Forest Preserve. There's also municipalities as well. Now, these are all different organizations that the county board has to work with. Now, the county board has to go through these municipalities as well as the Forest Preserve to get things done. That's not to say that the county board doesn't have the ability to do so, but they could definitely take a step in the right direction and take the lead on this program. And by doing so, if I, again, am fortunate enough to be elected, I would work with the municipalities as well as city councils and the Forest Preserve president to get things done, whether it's with this program or any other program, including any shared services throughout the county. Thank you.
Well, I guess we're all in agreement. The county board has supported trails for years, and we've been expanding the trail system throughout DuPage County, not just in District 4. We just added a trail from the county complex to downtown Winfield. So we've tried to take a look at where trails are used, where people would like to see trails expanded, and so that we could meet the needs and the desires of the people of DuPage County, because they've expressed over and over and over again the fact that they want trails for recreation and exercise.
Thank you. We'll begin our next question with Ms. Afzal. There is concern with toxic air pollution currently being leaked by Sterigene in Willowbrook. When did you first hear about it, and what do you intend to do to address it?
So this is a major issue, and as an environmentalist and as someone who supports green policy in DuPage, I believe that we need to move to immediately ban this kind of carcinogenic pollutant from our airs. Ethylene oxide is a major pollutant. I heard about this as soon as the story first broke. Liz Chaplin, the only Democrat on the board, has moved and introduced resolution legislation to ban the use of this pollutant in DuPage. I would support that and go further in urging the investigation into Sterigenics and to see exactly how they received this permit and were able to continue to leak this carcinogenic pollutant into the air in the area and continue to poison and cause cancer in surrounding residents. This is a generational problem. People are looking back to their grandparents, their own parents, and wondering if this is the reason why they all contracted cancer. This should be taken very seriously by the county board and should be investigated to the further steps.
Mr. Zaruba?
Thank you. I first found out about it actually when Greg Hart, a county board member in District 3, brought it to the county board's attention. Greg Hart also initiated and had a resolution passed that Mr. Eckhoff voted for to pass a resolution to have this facility and this business stop its operations until a full investigation was completed. The county board has been working with the Illinois Attorney General's office, who has taken the lead in this, as they should, but it is the county board's responsibility to remain informed and to communicate that information out to its constituents so people living in that area or any area that's affected in DuPage County are fully aware of any risks that may or may not exist.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Well, like many of you, I learned of this situation a couple of weeks ago, and the county board, as Chris said, did pass a resolution on Tuesday supporting the Attorney General in trying to shut down the facility until such time as we can be assured that it's going to be operated properly and safely. What people don't understand is we're not the state of Illinois, we're not a U.S. government, we're a non-home rule entity, and we are limited in the powers that we have. We can't just walk into the county board on a Tuesday morning and start passing things that are beyond the scope of our authority. So we have to look to the other authorities, like the state of Illinois, to take the proper action, and so the full action that we could take was to pass the resolution, but we can't do anything really beyond that.
Ms. Ozog?
I heard about the situation at the same time as my other fellow candidates, and the board has moved to do a resolution, but I think that all of us need to be concerned as United States citizens about what's happening on the national level with the Environmental Protection Agency. It seems in the past 17 months, it seems that every week we hear about new efforts to reduce our environmental protections that we've worked toward for the last 50 years. And hopefully this situation can be resolved, but hopefully in the months and years to come, we can come back to a strong environmental protection agency which is going to protect us citizens and not corporations.
Thank you. We'll begin our next question with Mr. Zaruba. How would you advocate for transportation other than gas-powered cars? In other words, encouraging use of bikes, electric cars, and more public and mass transportation.
Well, we talked about that a little bit with the last question 2 questions ago regarding the expansion of trails in DuPage County. I think the biggest impact that the county board could have as far as any reduction in emissions or saving on very expensive and environmentally toxic gas from cars that the county through all the different departments and offices utilize on a daily basis. The county has, for the most part, has done a very good record as it relates to environmental issues. One of the things I think the county can take a stronger lead on is looking in and looking at the furthering of technology as it relates to now turning in these offices, whether it's the highway department, the sheriff's office, the probation department, the cars in which these individuals are driving to and from, back and forth, and look to see maybe we'll move from some of these older cars to a little bit more gas-friendly vehicles. And all that does cost money, unfortunately, but it's something the county board should be looking into.
Thank you, Mr. Eckhoff.
Well, first of all, both my wife and I drive a Prius, and we got those before it was cool to get them back in 2004. So I've been aware of good gas mileage for a long time. The county has bought a couple of Priuses that are used for the people that go around the campus a lot. We put in an electric station for electric cars that could be serviced there. One of the things that I think the county has been a lot of discussion around the county for the last 20, 30 years about meeting transportation needs is making sure you have a workforce that's close to the jobs that they go to so that they're not constantly on the road. So affordable housing has been an issue that I've been concerned about and that I think has been addressed throughout the county, first by Bob Christ and Wheaton, and then throughout the entire county. And I think that's been a big success for a lot of people who live and work in DuPage County.
Thank you, Ms. Ozog.
Right after I received my degree from the University of Michigan, I studied urban planning and transportation planning at the University of Illinois, and I then worked for Metro and the CTA. So I have an extensive background in transportation, and I also live right next to the Union Pacific, which has been my neighbor for 32 years. I am very concerned, especially last week after listening to the Metro Board. They were talking about their future infrastructure situation, their future funding issues, and they did not raise fares this go around, but it's coming, and it is very important to DuPage County. Each resident receives a benefit of about $4,000 for public transportation in less congested roads, in ability for people to be employed. Basically, Chicago is a spoke and wheel system, but we need to be very concerned about Metra, Pace, and our roads. And we need to, this is also, again, a national issue. Is transportation important to areas like Chicago, like New Jersey and New York, where you hear about terrible situations? This is where we citizens need to make sure that we have the funding for the transportation that we need.
Thank you. Ms. Afzal?
Right now in DuPage County, it's nearly impossible to get around without a car. As a commuter student myself, I've experienced the difference that public transportation can make in the city of Chicago, and I wish we could have that here in DuPage. DuPage Connects, the recent 25-year initiative launched by the county board in order to help expand our public transportation services by expanding bus services, increasing bike lanes, and investing in the infrastructure of the roads for people who already do have cars. As a county board member, I would work to carry out the goals of that initiative to its fullest potential, because right now, public transportation is an issue that affects every single person, whether an elderly resident worried about how they can keep driving, or a college student who keeps getting stuck in traffic on the way to college DuPage. I live right down the road. My street is backed up every day with college students who can't find another way to get to class except for their cars. I spoke to a COD class the other day and asked them how many of them would take buses instead of cars if they had the choice, and every single one of them raised their hands. No one wants to pay for gas. No one wants to keep parking in crowded lots. This is an important issue.
Thank you. We'll begin our next question with Mr. Eckhoff. What policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in DuPage County?
I think we've got justice in DuPage County. I think that we try to be even-handed and deal with everyone fairly, regardless of what religion you're in, what's your race, ethnicity. I think that is something that I think is real great about DuPage County. So I think we've got a diverse workforce in DuPage County, and I think our judges and the Bar Association do a good job of trying to make sure that there's justice. One of the big things I remember Joe Burkett, when he was the state's attorney, used to say is that you need to have a stout defense bar in order to have justice. So we try to fully fund our public defender's office and make sure that they're well staffed, because well, the state's attorney's office is also staffed well, but they never wanted to have to go through a trial twice and put victims and families through a trial twice because the defense wasn't adequate.
Ms. Ozog?
I think to answer this question, I'm going to look to my current school board situation. Right now, we have a minimum of 15 languages that are used by our students at home. We've been in the middle of an initiative for the past 5 or 6 years. We are trying to hire more staff every year who look more like our students. DuPage is changing, there's no question about it. The United States is changing, and it always has. And as a first-generation American, my mother came here from Ireland in the 1950s. That is our strength. Diversity is our strength, and we have to acknowledge it, promote it, and celebrate it. And I would continue to do many of the things that we've worked toward on the District 87 board.
Thank you. Ms. Afzal?
So, before I was born, both my parents immigrated here from Pakistan, and they've chosen to make a home in DuPage because they found this county to be a welcoming place for them. I want to work to continue that as a county board member. Right now, there are no centralized county services for refugee population. We have a huge refugee population in DuPage. Over a quarter of the county is people of color, except right now the county board has no people of color on it. The board doesn't reflect the actual demographics of the county, and so I'm wondering exactly how they can best represent those constituents. I don't think you should ever vote for a candidate because they're a person of color, but I think that it bears repeating that people of color deserve a seat at the table. And I think that holds true, especially in local government, when these neighbors, your neighbors, the people you run into on the street every day, are not being accurately represented in their own elected legislative board. I believe that, as a young Muslim woman, I would continue to help shine a light on issues that affect certain minority groups in the county that haven't maybe been heard before.
Thank you. Mr. Zaruba?
Thank you. I think the best thing that the county could do is lead by example. Right now, the county is and has been for quite a while, an equal opportunity employer. So when the county does look into hiring, whether it's any different recorder's office, the state attorney's office, they're looking at an individual based on their qualifications and their qualifications only. Additionally, the county has a housing authority which the county board oversees. This is for low-income families in which apply to the county or to this housing authority for the county to look into and try and assist so individuals of different socioeconomic backgrounds can actually live in this county, and we're not just keeping DuPage County just for the wealthy. I think the county has done a very, very good job in that, and I think they will continue to do that. But the biggest thing is to lead by example and be able to interact with the community. So if there is an issue, if there is something that may be an oversight, that the county board makes themselves available to the community to address those items.
Thank you. Our final question, and we will begin with Ms. Ozog. What is your position on insurance and pensions for board members?
Insurance and pension for board members. Okay. First of all, if I have this correct, in 2011, a state statute was passed so that incoming board members cannot receive pensions. So that has been somewhat modified, so at least that situation is not existing going forward. As for benefits, the best way to get rid of the healthcare benefit for board members is for the board themselves to eliminate it. In terms of incoming board members, as long as it exists, sometimes people can be forced to take it depending on what their own personal situation, their own insurer tells them. But I think it should definitely be eliminated because I think $52,000 for this job is too much money as it is, and to add healthcare onto it is basically kind of ridiculous. So I think that's one way that we can certainly look at expenditures and public service. And yeah, I don't think they need insurance, and I think going forward, the pension issue is solved, but they should eliminate the insurance for themselves.
Thank you. Ms. Afzal?
So going off of what Mary mentioned, we need people on the county board who are willing to work to eliminate their own, to cut their own salary and to eliminate their own benefits in order to put that money back into services for actual constituents who they're elected to represent. Right now, DuPage residents deserve board members who will put their taxpayer dollars back into services for them. That's why they moved here, so they pay taxes, and that's why they continue to live here in DuPage. They deserve board members who will work for them and not for their own pocketbook. I support cutting the insurance benefits for board members. As Mary also mentioned, I believe the pension problem has been solved. But going forward, this is an opportunity for the board members to lead by example by prioritizing their constituents over their own selves.
Mr. Zaruba?
Thank you. I met my wife when I was working at the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. She's still a criminal prosecutor there, and because we're married, I am eligible to take health insurance benefits from the county. I don't think it's appropriate, and I wouldn't take it if I was elected as on the county board. Additionally, any of the individuals who are being elected for the first time would also be ineligible to receive a pension on the county board. So these are two benefits that one I wouldn't take, one I can't take. My position on this, my personal position on this, is that the county should not have a two-tiered system. Whatever the hired employee, if they're part-time, whatever benefits apply to them should be the same for a part-time elected official. And you shouldn't have an individual who's hired on the county have a different set of benefits or rules that apply to them that don't apply to the elected officials. So if this is truly a part-time job or part-time elected position, then the same rules should apply to any part-time position in the county.
Thank you, Mr. Eckhoff.
Full disclosure, I am going to receive a pension. I signed up for it. You can't unsign up for it. It was back in 2002. I don't receive health insurance. I can't tell you that over the years the county board has cut stipends that they used to receive, they cut the mileage that they used to receive, and now we're required to keep our time like an attorney does to verify the fact that we work at least 1,000 hours a year, if not more, and last year was I think about 1,200. So, but as everyone else has already said, there are no longer no one else can come on the board and take a pension.
Thank you. We will now begin with opening statements. Ms. Afzal will go, closing statements. Ms. Afzal will go first.
So I first want to thank, again, the League for hosting this forum. I think it's been hopefully informative to all of our viewers. I want to emphasize again that I'm an 18-year-old undergraduate college student who is running purely because she cares about her community. I am running for a county board because I'm aware of the problems that constituents are facing at a county level. I spent my last summer talking to residents and voters about county issues. People ask me, why not a smaller seat first? Why not a school board, city council? I run to fix a problem. I don't run for a title or for benefits or for any other reason except to fix a problem. We're running an issue-based platform that speaks to voters of all political backgrounds. We've spoken to Peter Green voters, we've spoken to Terracosta Howard voters, Jeannie Ives, J.B. Pritzker. Everyone agrees with our platform, I think because it speaks to something greater than just party. I believe that at a certain level of local politics, policy and moral principles matter far more than party affiliation, and we found that people across DuPage in our district agree with us on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again to the League of Women Voters as well as the audience here today. I know it's a great Sunday to be out and you guys chose to be here, so thank you. In my opening statement, I did talk a little bit about my family, and I am running for County Board in District 4 specifically for two groups of people. Right now I have two nieces and a nephew who live in Wheaton. I want them to be able to grow up to have the same great quality county services that I grew up with my parents living here. My parents are also here. They're retiring this year. And so I also want to have a community where my parents and our seniors in this community can be able to continue to reside, given the tax burden from our school boards, our state, and our municipalities. So I want the county to be able to do that, do our part, so that our retired seniors can be able to spend time with their grandchildren instead of moving out of state. I look forward to meeting all of you after this event. And I look forward to being your next representative on the county board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaruba. Mr. Eckhoff?
Well, DuPage County is a great place to live and raise a family. And over the time that I've been on either the Wheaton City Council or the DuPage County Board, I think I've contributed to help DuPage County be that way. We've kept your taxes low, essential services are delivered regularly and fully. If you compare DuPage County to some of the other counties, especially Cook County, I think we do a very good job in delivering the county services. I think we work very hard to listen to our constituents. We work very hard to meet their needs and to address their concerns. And that's why I think so many people are moving out to DuPage County, because they know it's a great place to live.
Ms. Ozog.
Thank you again to the league. During the primary season, my opponents, Mr. Eckhoff and Mr. Zaruba, spent $38,000 and $42,000 respectively. I spent $1,800. My grassroots campaign represents only the citizens of District 4 and not special interest donors. And that is the kind of independent representation District 4 deserves. I'm not in this campaign to build a resume. I have a resume built on years of service to the community. From my 12 years of service on the Glen Ellyn Architecture Review Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals to my 8 years on the Glenbard High School Board, as well as countless hours volunteering for my kids' activities in schools, I've contributed to our community for the past 32 years. I want to continue that service on the DuPage County Board. I ask you to choose the candidate with the most actual elected government board experience to check and balance how your tax dollars are spent in DuPage County. At Glenbard North, our Civics Club students wear red t-shirts emblazoned with the words, "Democracy is a verb." All of you here today believe that, and thank you for being here involved. I'm first on the ballot, and I will serve you first on the DuPage County Board. Thank you.
Thank you to all these candidates.
Done.
On behalf of the league, we would like to thank you all for coming to our forum this afternoon. We thank the candidates for participating, and we thank our moderator, Valerie Pelier, for moderating this forum. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day.